Ja, yoxatini, just to cut you on. Ja, ʼatsi outlayech, ja nadak. A droit ay gaging. ʼatsi at shi gacht ach. Ja chana. Ja, kesh je qoshqid. Ja, yidat. Qaachtu yek edan. Gwell Cajun ga qa ashu. Qonne ya wuchine jagachtu ni. Eqa tak I tit. Ja qunne heen. Tak I ti de ja qunne heen. A joy kesh qoshqid. Ja xee.á yudu asago at a joy khana. Xee.á. Tutat aya xee.á. Khana qoa xee.á. Eqa tat. Ayanach ik qoyat wayagi tak iti. Achtu ik tak aya wan qanins qanach yikuwach aya we tak yagi. Aqa we yanach ik kuwati wan qanins qatuwuk nuch. Ye awa qaqaw jaqit achtu ik wan qanins qo ayanach yati wayagi. Chuya Telchushugu aya ade khatwu de khatle. Gulchisha khaitisa akhia yagi. Wasasiyati dasadati uditan. Shukwa Lingít khatangi atkhkartulay.
Tsatsi yanik.
Ha. Guksa. Yakage. Okay. Any language thoughts or questions? What was I talking about?
Sounded like you were talking about being sick or not feeling well, but now you're feeling better.
I don't think so. Yannick? Did I say Yannick? I don't think
I may have misunderstood it.
Achtu yek Kesh yek qoshqit. Let's see. Did I even say that right? Let's go take a look.
One of the problems with understanding is I hear a lot of syllables and they don't necessarily all match words.
Kesh qoshqit. Kesh qoshqit. Oh, I forgot.
How's there not word? I feel like this is something that would show up in a sword.
I think you could say it. I mean, so if we look, this is a 0, so you should be able to say no.
Just become dark.
Let it be dark. Yeah, Darth Vader. But it's when we start class, it's not dark. That's kind of cool. No, I was just talking about like days getting longer, days being short. It's a fun verb. Yindi wuhihi weqaqan hakakak qoshqid. Kak qoshqid. Okay. Anyways, it's not as dark out. It's mostly what I was talking about. And then there's a squeaky table. I think it was built by a bird. That's what I said. There it goes.
Oh, we're switching this.
Okay. Any language thoughts or questions before we start our work for the evening?
I did get the documents from Cheat Woo class. I will email them during class out to everyone. So the story in the Book of John.
Well, I kind of went crazy with this idea with the conjugator as a document. And so the idea here is to give you a cheat sheet on kind of most of the verb modes. And so on the top left, you're going to see the conjugation type and the classifier. On the right, you're going to see the stem variation. So everything is here for you. For example, if we were to look up a verb, so we all know a zero conjugation verb and a zero classifier, and we probably do it every day, although we might take a day off here and there if you're, there could be various reasons, but the one I'm thinking of is this one. So if we say object, subject, zero classifier, ḳee.á, zero act, that fits this. So we can, these are all of the prefixes already built for us. There's different ways you can approach this, I think. You can look it up and just start memorizing them. Just say, okay, this is a zero classifier, it's zero conjugation. So if I said, I ate it, what is that going to sound like? Right? It's an open. This is open, so it's going to be long and high, right? So this is how we read it. We have different type of stems. This stem is open. That means it just ends with vowels. There's no little h. That is an open stem. 0 and 0. So ḥwa. So it's going to be ḥaa all the way down. Now, how do we say we ate it? Watuwa. Right, so the prefix is right there. Watuwa. Throw ḥaa on the end of it. You ate it.
Yaha.
Okay. Y'all ate it. Yiha. So this is a third person without an object, and this has an object. They ate it. We're going to go down to this one.
Awaha.
Awaha. Yeah, it was eaten.
Uduaha.
Duaha. Right? So like everything is there for you. Now, with this book, which is now 400 pages, you don't have to open this up anymore. So let's see. I want to find one. Okay, maybe. Okay, I know one that's closed. Okay. I bet you this one is. Oh, this has some things on it.
What about trouble?
Wait, Latin. Oh wait, no, that's not a zero. I need a zero classifier, zero conjugation, closed verb. Okay, I know how to find one. I can find one. Okay, we're gonna go to.
Is Junkle killed?
Oh, sure.
Because I'm looking at the document right now. Pretend to be dead.
Oh, right. Okay. So, killing in the name of. We'll look up jock. Object, subject, zero. Jock, zero. Okay, this is look at the parts, right? What we're looking for right now is a zero classifier, and this goes the other way too. So we'll go find a verb, and then we'll go find it in this sheet, because I'll tell you the order of these things so that you'll know where to look. So this one is closed. So what do you think the stem is going to be?
Consonant, high vowel consonant.
It's this short high.
Oh, chick,
Chuck.
chick.
Well, it's chuck. It's got to be the A vowel. Chuck.
Chuck.
Okay, maybe I'm remembering wrong what the stem was.
Well, you've got the vowel right, but it sounds like an I vowel to me.
I thought it was an. What was the stem again?
Jock.
Okay, I was thinking it was EI.
Yeah. So Jake, if it were Jake, it would go to
Mhm.
Jack. And if it were Jeek, it would go to Jick. Okay, so it's going to be Jack. So how would I say I killed it?
What, Juck?
Yeah, well, I killed it.
Juck.
You killed it.
Ye chuck.
Y'all killed it.
Ye chuck.
They're going to jump down to this one. They killed it.
Wa chuck.
It was killed.
What the chuck?
Okay, so now we're not looking for some specific thing. Someone says, oh, what's the verb to borrow something? Oh, here it is. Object, subject, zero classifier, g conjugation. So now going back to this conjugator book, we're in the perfective section, and this is how it's going to go. Zero conjugation. Zero classifier, D plus 0. S classifier, D plus S. L classifier, D plus L. SH classifier, D plus SH. Now we're going to go to na, ka, and ka. So what this tells you, all of those are conjugating exactly the same. They will have the exact same prefix. So now we're at the right section. It is a zero classifier. We'll go back and take a look. This is a zero classifier. This is act. Okay? And the act part, that doesn't even really matter. Not right now. But if it's well, if we look over here, we have open, closed, and high. Okay, so this is a little bit different than I think I've done it before. I'm trying to simplify it, which is going to be frustrating for people who've studied with me before, because they're going to say, you're changing the names. Who do you think you are? And I'll say I'm the guy who's simplifying it. So what we're looking for is, if you see this high tone mark, that means it stays high. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. High tone stays high. So in that case, this is a high one, so we should expect this for the stem, which would sound like what? Focus. Go back.
He's.
Yeah, when. So, I borrowed it.
He's.
We borrowed it.
He's.
You borrowed it.
He's.
Y'all borrowed it.
He's.
They borrowed it.
He's.
What about they all borrowed it?
Would do a he's.
Well, that would be it was borrowed.
Be has our his.
Hus.
Yeah, so this does not show you the third person plural. You drop a hus in front of it, right? Like that, because that change is pretty straightforward. So this is, I can only fit so much stuff on here. Once I got the idea to put the stem variation up here, I ran out of room for everything. So going back, so if we say, okay, here's a verb with a 0 classifier, and the root is he's. That's all the information I need to put this verb into all kinds of different modes. You want a future? Let's jump to the future. We got to scroll. This is a little bit of extra information. I've actually got to add one more thing onto this one. I can't forget. I have to do it tonight. I'm going crazy with this thing. But what this shows you is it says you can add a suffix. You could change this mode where the prefix stays the same, but if you add this suffix, there's a whole other mode you could build off of this one. So for example, you could say ʼatudli.átk, right? We've probably heard that. ʼatudli, I will go there. ʼatudli, I would have gone there. I was going to go there, but I'm not now. So you can this is called a decessive suffix. You could throw it, once you know how to build a future, you could throw that on there and it would work. Okay. I thought you were going to go to my house, but you didn't. Okay. So future, this one's a little different. So this one, I tried to fit everything on. I didn't want to have a future card for every conjugation. So this says 0, na, ka, ka, don't matter. It does, but this is how it's going to work. So here's for a 0 classifier, which we have. It's going to be long and high, which, so it's going to be he's. But now, if it's na or 0 conjugation, it doesn't need a preverb. If it's ga, you have to have k. If it's qa, you have to have ye. So if this is ga conjugation, you have to add k. You do have some options here for your prefix, and this is how the future works. It is qa. But if there's a vowel before it, it'll condense to qa. There is a vowel before it because k ends in a vowel. So how would I say, I am going to borrow it?
Okay, his.
Oh wait, we're going to borrow it. We got to put the k in front of it. Kegachtu.
Oh, kegachtu.
Yep, so that this preverb section says this is a g conjugation, so k has to come first. Just has to go there, right? You will borrow it. Y'all will borrow it.
His.
They will borrow it.
Okay, his.
It will be borrowed.
Kegachtuis.
Yeah, what? You could do it all now. Any questions about this thing? I'm gonna add command. I'm gonna add prohibitive.
Where do we find the conjugator book?
I'll put it in the chat and I'll put it on our class webpage. It's not done yet, but when it's kind of done, I'll make a printed version. And I'll try and get someone to, I'm really bad at this part, but I'll try and buy copies, get someone to buy us all copies, and then someone will send it to you. This should really be a potential verb. I'm just really bad at mailing things. But you do have the PDF version, so let me put it in the chat. It's still the habitual negative I am really uncertain about. But
You airdrop it to me, since I have to send that email with all cheat booth stuff, I can also email everyone. And then you don't have to worry about replacing it on the website since it's draft form.
well, yeah. Okay.
That would be awesome because the computer that I Zoom into class on is not the computer that I actually do my work on. So anything that I open on this computer, I'm like, oh great, now how do I get it to the other one?
Oh, right.
Because my other one does not have a camera and does not have a microphone. And well, people would at least like to hear me, I think. Maybe not, but
For sure. Okay, well, I'll put it in the chat for now, and then you could grab it off. Is that good enough to have it in the chat?
I can grab
Okay. So, but like you want to do the potentials were these ones are wild. So this one, just to have a little mind-bending moment, like what was that movie? Doctor Strange, when all the land starts moving all over the place. So a potential, there's kind of 4 major types of potentials. And so even though you can see the prefix here, you have to put something in the preverb, which I might have to say, look back to this, I don't know. I'll figure it out.
see
But for
page
example,
198 or whatever it is.
yeah, exactly. So you put was in front of it and you get might do the verb. Was place might not do the verb. It conjugates exactly the same. This one doesn't have anything in the preverb, but you throw this on and it says would have. And then xee.á with this plus I or always low. And then, yeah, that's what the little X means it's always low. I was trying to figure out, I was getting all kinds of headaches looking at this thing. So for example, xa, it's 0 and 0. Coming back to that eating it verb. It's open. I do expect it to be high. So it should be qa, but then you got to put something there. qa, I might eat it. qa, I might not eat it. ʼatudli.átk qa. So lots of mayonnaise on it. I don't think I might not eat it. ʼchayin, I would have eaten it. I can't
Can
eat
you
it.
put in there somewhere how we would know which suffix to use?
What do you mean?
So it could be in or it could be un.
Oh, it's in unless it's rounded, and then it's on.
Okay, un. I've
Just
been
like
helping my
it.
children with French lately, I can tell.
Yeah, these follow the same rules. All right, just coming way back to the relational possessive suffix we learned.
Okay.
Same rules apply to these, and this one will be, and basically, if you have, I think for all of these suffixes, they will all be the opposite of the tone before it, unless they have this little X. That means it'll stay low. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much that's packed into this thing. I'm really happy about it, but I'm also ajit.
Ask a question?
You went
Yes.
on a hyper focus with this.
So, where you have the suffix and you were talking about rounded, but then down below in the upper right-hand corner of potential, use the language open, close, and high. But there can be, when you say open, are you talking about it only ending in vowel, or does it also apply to rounded?
So if you had something that was like AAW, that's considered a consonant. That's a
Okay.
closed.
Those are closed. So your setup where there's 2 different prefixes, like ʼatudli.átk and ʼatudli.átk, is it always whether or not it ends in vowel across all your tables?
Okay, so this one, oh yes. So it's qatuwa. But if there's, so you could say gwash qatuwaha. Maybe we're gonna eat it. But then you'd say kesh adechtuwaha yeah. So that vowel before it is gonna trigger this contraction. So yes, it's the same. So generally, if you're seeing two options here, it's saying consonant, this one, but if there's a vowel before it, here's your contracted version. Which again, like, there's only, these are like a 5x8 card. If I start putting little notes and stuff on it, it's gonna.
Not notes, but I'm wondering if there's another symbol that could be used.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's pretty consistent. Like if you go to most of these just have one. But if you go to the futures and the potentials, I think those are the ones that have the variance. But it's sort of like, here's what it is, but if there's a vowel before it, it's going to be this one.
Maybe we should talk about, because I play a lot of card games, and complicated tabletop card games have one of the cards that's just instructions on how to read the rest of the cards.
Oh yeah, I could put it up here because it starts with like some, just straight into tables. So like the how-to, yeah, like I made a board game and there's no instructions for it. And I made this and there's no instructions for it. But like the living in the class, that's the instructions. I don't know.
The instructions are watch the YouTube.
Yeah. But maybe I do need to do a short video that's just for this, especially once it gets close to done. Because like here's a hortative, right? And it also shows like a loose translation of what this means. Like let it be done, let it be, let it happen. Right? Really like sort of like doing, is, and happen type of things. That's how I was thinking of it. And this one, if you throw a T at the end, it's so it would happen. Right? So again, ḳe'a, or yeah, ḳe'a, let me eat it. I came here so I could eat it.
Yeah, I would like to play around with a card because I'm thinking about like we had one of my classmates who'd been taking classes with you for a while.
Mm-hmm.
She asked what the superscript H was.
Okay.
And she's one of the deep divers. So I'm just thinking like if even she's got questions after years.
Right.
Or not remembering what that H is fading.
Well, yes, because the other thing is like in previous classes, just to be straightforward, we haven't gotten to this stuff yet because we're still trying to figure things out. And then like over the years, I've been trying to figure out more and more resources to get to this, to try and simplify it, right? So it doesn't matter what these things are called. And all that matters is like you have these two things for a hortative. A hortative has to have qa and the conjugation prefix, a -I classifier. That's what it needs to have. The stem is a little bit funky. You just gotta say, okay, it's either this one or that one. I don't know how to determine that.
Can you repost the conjugator in the chat?
Yeah.
And I'm about to email it all out too. To your whatever email you have listed as your primary contact email at the university.
So we might, for some of these, we still are gonna have to, we're gonna have to open this thing up, like, and say, is it hits or he's for the hortative? So here's the hortative, it's he's. Okay, got it. I just gotta kind of, and you still have to sort of put different things into different parts of your memory banks, but now you say, he's, let me borrow it. And now I could say, i'in khatishaan, dana kahist. I'm nice to you so I can borrow money. Or whatever.
So I don't know about anybody else, but what would be super awesomely helpful for me would be if we could get like a sample stem for each of the different categories of like kind of like a useful noun. So that way I can like play with it and then, or not noun, useful verb. So I can play with it and actually make it do something. And not just have it such an abstract concept.
Yeah. Well, and so there is, under the verb components thing, like these are all your stem variations, right? So stem variation comes down to 3 things. One, what's the conjugation? Is it 0 or is it all the other ones? 0 plays by its own rules. It's like, I'm special. I like to be high all the time. And then these ones, they tend to go low a little bit more. It's kind of how it works. The other thing, is it an open stem? Is it, oh, look, my little closing thing is tiny. Okay, I gotta fix that. Is it open, which is CVV, or is it fading, CVV with your little h? Fading. What that means, if you look at this whole list, everything is identical except for habitual. Because look at this one. High, low. And repetitive. High, low for both of them. That is the single difference. Well, yeah, that's the only difference between those. And then here's, so you have open, fading, closed, high. So you have 4 different types of stem. That is noted in the theme. The theme will show you what the stem variation is. So the third factor is the mode. A perfective, closed, 0 is short and high. The others, the closed ones, are long and low. Unless there's no low version. So you say, hat chwakut, I came here. Then you'd say, chwashat, I caught it, because that one doesn't go low. But then you'd say, chosatin, that one is low just as expected.
There's the verb conjugator handout, and that has sample verbs and verb sounds for each of the things.
Right.
So that's a resource too.
And at this stage, like it's not really supposed to make, it's not going to make sense yet, like all the pieces. Like they'll start to come together. But we're sort of just looking at this like, I don't know, I feel like it's like we're going to go on a hike. But then I'm like, look through the binoculars, look at where we're going to go. That's a cool place. We're not there yet. But it's okay to ask questions.
Because yeah, I feel like I'm kind of hovering on the brink of falling into this and understanding it, but I need to have the different things so I can actually play with them and be like, okay, so this actually does this, and like write it out myself, because it doesn't stick if I don't do it myself.
So we'll go through, now we'll start going through some examples. And as we go through these examples, we're going to stop and look at the theme so we could practice looking at a theme from an intermediate and advanced perspective, right? So like beginning Lingít, you're like, hey, there's this whole bunch of symbols and some calculus equation and some square root marker, right? But the whole idea is really just to say, this is this type of thing. And we'll teach you how to understand what those things do over time. But then as you're learning it, I do think it does help to go through and just run through examples and examples, because then you start changing the object a whole bunch. And your mind is like, oh yeah, I got to build these pronoun lists so that I can just change them on. Because, you know, to be able to do this stuff on the fly, I think you kind of have to know. Like I remember as my fluency was climbing, I would engage in conversations with elders in Lingít and try to catch what they're saying, be able to say things myself. But then I would have different conversations with friends like Zeosh James Crippen, who would be like, oh yeah, that's a g conjugation verb. I got to remember that K pops up. And I got to remember, and we would have these conversations in English about the verbs and how we sort of start ingesting them. So we're going to do this. We're going to shift gears. Like that conjugator thing is there. Look at it, start using it. One way you can use it is just either going to the dictionary or going to Eggleston stuff, or like the verb database, but don't open it. But you can look at that thing. You look at the verb theme, right? Like we just did for he's. Okay, we'll do one more. So we can just go grab a verb. So here's, let's not do motion verbs. They're too much. They're just too much. Okay. It got blunt. Oh, that's gotta, okay, that's fine. This has a thematic prefix on it. We can handle it. So there are a couple things that Eggleston marks different than what I would do. So this says D, I would put D plus 0, right? This says ʼeek, I would put a root marker there. This has this little tilde, I wouldn't have that there at all. That just means the stem is variable, but almost all, like 98% of them are. This is marked high, so it won't go low. This is a zero conjugation. So for example, a really good one to practice, I think, is the perfective and the future. So if this is zero, and then we come back, well, I don't want to do this one. Sorry. Let's do cry.
Cake.
No cry?
No, it's in their homework.
Oh, whoops.
What about pray?
Oh, okay, we'll do pray. No, it's got too much stuff. Let's see. I'm gonna try. Okay.
Visiting?
Mm,
See, this is why I was asking for the list of stems that don't have hundreds of things tacked onto the front.
yeah. Well, if you look at when we go through these beginning Tlingit verbs, you'll see that these verbs were strategically chosen by ḳe'á and ḥe'á to just teach you like they even pick ones that like don't really have objects, and they pick ones, you know, that I pick some that don't have subjects, and we start introducing both, and then they don't have a whole bunch of things in front of them either. But we'll learn that. So the conjugator does not show you what changes when you have a thematic prefix, because it would be 700 pages then. That'll be probably part 2. So, okay, for this one, object, subject, zero classifier, qa, event. Okay, the event means there's no imperfective. That's all we need to remember for that. So we come in here, here's a perfective. It's a zero classifier, but it's qa conjugation. So we'll go down to the next page. Oops. Man, these are all zeros, okay. So here's a zero, and it's qa. This is the right page to be on. We know that it's a closed stem because it wasn't marked high, so we should expect it to be qa. So now we could say, I visited them. Huaqaq, watuaqaq, yiqaq, yiqaq, awaqaq, waduaqaq. And then we can go back, and not all of these are going to have all of them in there. But there's huaqaq and there's awaqaq. So we know we could check some of our predictions, and if these two are right, then we know all the rest are right. We know that. And so you could put together your own sentences pretty fast. You say, this thing didn't conjugate every verb for me automatically. No, you got to do it yourself. You're going to have to learn how. We got to, where you go bowling and they put the little side guards up, put the guards down. Time to walk. Okay, I was mixing metaphors. Okay, all of these have a high tone. We did them already. So we should be able to go through this one fairly fast. These are independent pronouns. They're not linked to anything grammatically. They work really well for gusu and yadu, or to say blank aya, blank awe. So how do I say me in this regard? Khat ye awe. Us.
Wuhan,
You.
Eh.
Say it again.
Eh.
That would not be this one. That would be one that's coming up. Gusu.
Wa'e.
Wa'eh. Yeah, wa'eh. You all.
Yuan.
On. Singular, them. Oh, this one everybody forgets?
huh,
Yeah, wa'eh.
I always
It. Single, non-human. Them all.
Us.
Someone.
Ush.
Well, that would be that person we've been talking about. We haven't done the ush yet. It's in the secret. It's in the secret safe on the top of the mountain. A person or someone. The fourth person.
Duh.
Might start with underline K. Might have a long high vowel. Pa. And something. At. Yeah, well. Okay, so these are all of the independent pronouns. Well, these are the ones we're focusing on right now. Khat, uhan, wa'eh, yuhan, hu, has, ka, at. High tones on all of them. None of these can be directly linked to any verbs or any sort of relational terms, anything like that. If you're going to do a relational term, like a kinship term, or to say it's my thing, or to say around me, you're going to switch to these ones. So now comes a set. There are no high tones in any of these. So how would you say my?
Ach.
Yeah, away. Ach. Our.
Has.
Ha. Yeah, away. Ha.
Ha.
Yeah, away. Your. I heard this one a few minutes ago. Y'all's is. You all's is. Yous guys is. I think I heard it.
Yuhan.
Well, Johan was the independent.
Wait.
See, this belongs to y'all.
Wuhan?
Close, but you got cut off the second syllable. Ye. So people like from Pennsylvania say use. What's the plural? What's the possessive of those? Uses?
Use guises.
Use guises? Okay. Sheesh.
Use guy.
Okay, singular, they. Their.
Singular they are. No, they're.
Their. Like it's their thing. It's their relative.
Duh.
Duh.
Do.
Huh.
Oh.
And duh. Those ones actually get mixed up a lot. Also, people like to really try to put duh in a verb for a third person. It's very common. You'll just see people do it. And duh it's confusing because there is a subject pronoun duh, but it is a fourth person. Just because. It's like the dog's bone, the cat's meow, the bee's knees. Okay. It's ut will be some things. So that one is coming. This one will be just like the independent, but if we made the vowel low. It's all over the place in the noun dictionary by Naish Story. It's a dot. Lingít uses this all the time. It loves the third person relational pronoun. Right? It just says all the time. Right? A dot away yuchakwatan. I'm gonna talk about it. But it's a third person. It's not something. We'll get to that. Them alls is
Them all is.
all of theirs.
Is it hoodoo?
That's
Hustu.
very close. Hustu. Hustu. All right, that's good. We're getting it. Someone's.
I'm gonna guess ka.
If we can lower that vowel, please, then we've got it. Ka. Right? So you'd say, siku wu ka tla yagi. What would that be? Siku wu ka tla yagi. I guess you'd say yagi.
Is that like Happy Mother's Day?
That sure is. So like, a person's mother, a person's father, a person's thing, ka kusti, a person's life. Some things.
You just said a minute ago it was us.
I sure did, and it still is. Hasn't changed. Every while if it changed. Like a husk jumped in there or something. Like a Tuesday. Those husks were everywhere. Okay, so this is all the relational pronouns. So these are the ones you will use for all of those relational terms, right? So you want to say under, achtayi, hatayi, itayi, yitayi. You want to say over, dukina, akina, hastukina. And so all of these relational terms, you want to follow them? Ach itch, ha itch, itch. You want to go be by someone? Yichan, duchan, hastuchan, achan. So like all of those relational terms that we're looking at a couple weeks ago, they all get tied to this. It's raining on me. Achkatsiu daku satan. It's raining on y'all. Ye katsiu daku satan. Let luck be with you. Ijich yinqati shachek. So you'll see these ones, they get used all over the place. So part of our work is remembering which type of pronoun is it, and then pulling from our list and just sort of continuing to build our list of things, which we're doing with all of these sample sentences that we're translating, right? I'm going to give you a bunch of money. There's the it. You're going to give me a bunch of money. Okay. Any questions about these? Any guesses on what comes next?
Objects.
Bring on the blue. Okay. So now we're switching into verbs. And after this, we're going to practice some verbs, changing the objects. So when we get to the one that's full, maybe I'll take a screenshot and just drop it in the chat, and we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and you'll have them, and you could just look at them, and it's not just, it's difficult, but you can learn how to remember which one. Okay, these are object pronouns, right? And for Lingít, sometimes it uses object pronouns where you wouldn't expect it in English, right? So you say, I am strong. That's an object, right? And so in terms of how we get there with Lingít, we just keep in mind these lists of things. It's like a wheel. What's on that wheel? Okay. All of these will be low tone. Some of them will have hyphens. We'll talk about that after we get through our list. What is the object pronoun for me?
It.
For me. Me's always going to have the on there.
Oh. Ka.
Close.
Ka.
Yes. Khat. So it's khat. Right? And we're gonna start using these in verbs. We'll run through and see what they look like when we start changing them. Us.
Ha.
Ha. Yeah, what? You.
Eh.
Yeah, what? This one has a hyphen. That means we write it on the verb. It attaches to the verb. So you'd say chatlitzin, 2 words. Ichlitzin, 1 word. You all.
Ye.
Ye. No hyphen. It's always its own word. Them.
No.
Yeah. And.
0.
But
Sometimes
sometimes.
I.
Yes. So this is 0, but it can switch to if the subject is also a third person. 3 on 3, you get That's just how it works. Otherwise, it's always 0, which is wild, right? Because you say, I ate it. But in Lingít, you'd say blank, say nothing. Perfective marker, so you'd say nothing, perfective marker, I eat. Right? Them all.
Us do?
Not hus do. If you took the do off there.
And hus.
Hus and the same thing. 0 marker, but it'll be if there's a third person subject. Someone. Say it again.
Ha.
We had ka. It's
Ka.
going to be pretty closely
This would be
related.
as ash.
No, we're not going to deal with Ush. Ush is going to stay
Okay.
in a log box on top of the mountain.
Still secret.
Okay, but I'll tell you what Ush is. Ush is that person we've been talking about. Or think of it as the main character. But we're not going to use it until you'll see it in stories, and you'll see how it's used, and you'll see it in sample sentences.
Yeah, I
But it's
remember.
basically like if we're telling a story and it's getting a little complicated, who's doing the thing? Ush is the main person we've been talking about. This is the 4th person human. What we are looking for is there's 2 variations on this one. It is ka or k. I should probably switch these around real quick. And I'll tell you why. So I think I'll switch these around because, whoops, hold on. I gotta fix this. Okay, so I would say it is k. K is the 4th person object pronoun. So for example, Kuchsatin, I saw people, right? I saw, we'll see this in use to see how it's used, and how it creates meaning in Lingít. But if there's a weather verb that also has k, then you would use ka. Because you can say kuyak or kuwak. That could mean people are good. But if you just walked up to someone who spoke Lingít and you said kuwak, they would look at the weather. I guarantee you. So then you'd say kayak. So if you need to differentiate that it is indeed people, you'll switch it to ka. What about something?
At.
Yeah, at. And sheesh. 2 left. To each other.
Is it
Wooch or whoosh.
Wooch or whoosh. Yeah, whoosh if the next sound is a consonant. Wooch if the next sound is a vowel. But that's not, you'll see some sliding on that. You'll see high fluency speakers who would say whoosh-een. It's not wrong, but I would expect wooch-een just by the sort of my understanding of how it works. To the self.
Is it just sh?
It's just shh, yes. Sometimes it's chush. It's same thing. I think I'll switch these around. Because I would say it's SH. Most commonly, you can say chush if you really need people to hear that that is on there. I'm going to rearrange these a little bit more room. Okay. The other thing I might mark over here is I might mark these two. So if these two pop up in the actual object position, they will push the verb plus D. So, you know, if you say, chasachan, I love it. Tusachan, we love it. Wooch tudzechan. So the plus D part goes on there because like we love each other. So this is your list of object preverbs. What I'm going to, or pronouns, sorry. What I'm going to do is take a screenshot.
Is there not a third person non-human for this?
No, there is not. So if a third person non-human is just a regular third person. So that's why it doesn't say 3, H, or N.
Okay.
They just have the same. Doesn't matter.
I'm taking notes and I had the pattern down and then I had to go back and erase it because there wasn't a third person non-human.
And this, okay, let me take a new picture of it. So this should also say it. Thank you for pointing that out.
Oh, you should take off third person singular human then.
Oh, is that what it says? Okay, yeah. Okay, any questions before we take our break? Okay, take 5, get ready to switch objects and verbs. How fun. I'm gonna pause it this time. So, reading a Lingít verb theme. So this is like as we sort of look at all this stuff that we've been talking about and like the color coding system and the little symbols and everything, just trying to sort of think of, okay, what do I need to know to use this verb? But you could take this verb root right here, this verb theme, and then take it to that conjugator book, and you can conjugate this in all kinds of ways. So you could say ḳeqwak-ā, ḳeqwak-ā, ʼigak-ā. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can learn how to do. ʼigak-ā would be the command form, be good. Wook-ā, it was good. ḳeqwak-ā, it will be good. ḳeqwak-ā, it won't be good. And then there's a whole bunch more stuff that you can do, like potentials are difficult, hortatives are a little difficult. You would end up with ʼa, let it be good. But for now, we're really just focused on learning how to change the object for these. So this one is going to be in the imperfective. State verbs have imperfectives. State verb imperfectives have a plus I classifier. So we expect this classifier to be ya. This one stays high, and this one likes to just be a lot. But in this case, it is. It's going to be just as written right here. So we should expect ya and a just like this. So with that in mind, and there's a screenshot of those object pronouns in the chat, which you can open if you want to. How would you say, I am good? Everybody say, ʼatudli.átk.
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 You are good.
Okay, I'm still lost at how you got the
Oh, okay, yes. Okay, let's go back. So when we talk about imperfective, which is the right now, right? It's happening right now, or it is that way. There are only three. So this is like right here in the middle, it says state verb. So we do have act, event, state, motion, position. Those are our 5 types of Tlingit verbs. An act has an imperfective, but it must be minus I classifier. So that would stay 0. An event does not have an imperfective. It'd have to be perfective, future. Sometimes you get a progressive. A state verb does have an imperfective, but it has to be plus I. The reason it has to be plus I is because the plus I in the classifier says it did happen. The verb did happen. Or it potentially will happen. That's the 2 things the plus I does. So for something to be a certain way, it must have become that way, so it must be plus I. And that's why the plus I version of the 0 classifier is ya.
And so what happens to the 2 little marks on top of the
Yeah, so the reason why we would write these 2 marks right here is to say this is a Y, but if something comes before it that has a U sound, rounded, it can turn into a W. That's that's why we put those 2 dots on there. Just to say that could become a W, don't freak out. But if there's nothing rounded before it, it will be a Y. And Cheesh, thank you for asking.
Sheesh, that helps so much.
Yes. And so we only write it when we're sort of in the theme or sort of when this right here is called the segmenting. So segmenting means let's pull it apart and see what's there. Underneath it, we have what's called the gloss. The gloss means ḳe't is me, first person singular object. Ya is the classifier. It's 0 and it's plus I. A is the root. That means good. This is in the beginning Tlingit workbook, but a lot of times we just don't even, it's like, that's there. Yeah, cool. But in intermediate, we're like, go back and look at it. You'll see all the stuff is there. It was like putting seeds in your brain of delicious potatoes. Okay. You are good.
ʼAk.
How many words are we going to put?
1.
1 word.
Say,
ʼAk.
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 okay.
ʼAk.
Yake.
ʼAk.
Okay.
Yake.
They are good, or it is good.
Okay.
ʼAk.
Just yake. So there's no subject. So the third person, if there's no subject, the third person object will always be unmarked. There'll be nothing there, which is like our English brain just has to accept that. We don't need any pronoun. We just say yake. Yake.
Okay.
Yake.
Yake.
Okay.
Yake.
The next page has plurals and the fourth person. We are good.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, ha yake.
Yake.
Okay.
Ha yake.
Okay.
Yake.
Ha yake.
Yake.
All are good.
Okay.
Ah. Yiyake.
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 Okay.
Yiyake.
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 They all are good.
Asyake.
Yeah. Hasyake.
Hasyake.
Syake.
Hasyake.
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 People are good. Now, k is the default, but there is a weather verb that would be kuwake or kuyake. So while technically that could be people are good, we're going to use the expanded version ka to make sure people know what we're talking about. People are good.
Kayake.
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 So going back, we go chat I 0, and then we go ha yi has k, but in this case ka. That's going to be the pattern that we follow for the next few verbs. Here's our next one. Somebody tell me, looking at this theme, what are the things I need to know to predict this is going to be right now?
State verb.
State verb.
Classifier L. I think the state verb, it's a minus I.
It's a state verb. It's going to be an imperfective, so it must be plus I. It has the plus I says it is that it has to.
State verb, right. Sorry.
Gotta stink in order to stink, right? It's gotta happen. It must have happened, right? It's just good practice, so it should be shit. Yes, so it's going to be shichan. There's an object only, not a subject. The third person must be unmarked. There'll be nothing there, no pronoun. This little thing, this little X, means it's always short and high. You never have to guess what the stem's going. No, don't guess. You never have to formulate what the stem is going to be. It's going to be chun every time. This is a g verb, so we could, ke-guch-le-chun, it's going to stink. All the other things that you could do with that. But for now, if it's le-chun, how would I say I stink? Say it again? Yeah, away. Chat-le-chun.
Chan.
Chat-le-chun.
Kayake.
Chat-le-chun.
Chun.
Yeah, away. You stink. Yeah, away. Isha-chun.
Isha-chun.
Chun.
Chan.
Isha-chun.
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 Chun.
May have been an intermediate Lingít class or beginning Lingít class years and years ago. Maybe there's a recording of it somewhere. Somebody took off their boots and in the wintertime they've been wearing them a lot. And somebody said, ha, Isha-chun. So it's a living example of language. Okay. They stink, it stinks. And this also means it could just have a strong odor. It doesn't mean it smells bad.
Doesn't the LI thing mean it's something that's kind of not good?
In this case, it's just sort of there, but the L classifier often means it has a thing. So I guess you could say there's a stink on it. It has a stink.
Is it the SH one that has like a negative tone?
That's the one that's, kind of negative. Okay, they stink, single they. Or it.
Chun?
Chichan. Oh, Chichan.
Isha-chun.
Chichan.
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 Shichan.
Chun.
Shichan.
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 We stink.
Hashichan.
Ha shichan.
Ah, Shichan.
Ah, yes. We're gonna get to the two. That's the. We're doing it. Hashichan.
Ashlichan.
Hashichan.
Hashichan.
Ashlichan.
Ha shichan.
Hashichan.
Ha
Hashichan.
shichan.
You all stink.
Yishlichan.
Yeah, away. Yishichan.
Yishlichan.
Ishichan.
Yishichan.
Yishlichan.
Ishichan.
Yishichan.
Yishlichan.
Shichan.
Ah! They all stink. I don't know why I was in a hurry. What happened? They all stink.
Has.
Yeah, away. Hashichan.
Haslichan.
Shichan.
Hashlichan.
Hashichan.
Hashlichan.
Haslichan.
Hashichan.
Hashlichan.
Shichan.
People stink. Now, I don't believe there's any stinky weather, so we are going to use huh attached to the verb.
You haven't been to Tacoma. Kushichan.
Yeah, away. Kushichan.
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 Any questions?
So how would you say you stink of something? You know,
I
like
guess
you smell like the campfire, or
you'd
Yeah.
say
you smell like
Yuck.
smoked salmon.
Yachwadidzinik. I would probably end up saying. You smell like this thing. So you tz'eek, yachwad, tz'eek, yach. Udidzinik. You smell like a campfire. Or you smell like smoke, I guess. But then if you wanted to say, because if you said shichan, like ishichan, yach, you stink like garbage, right? And so like, just be careful with some of these things. That wouldn't be a very nice thing to say. But you could say, like you smell really strong. And like chan, it's not usually a compliment, but it's not always like a negative thing. Ao chun is a Lingít name. And what could ao chun refer to? Any ideas?
Oh, isn't that like fat?
Hi. Ao chun. Anybody know what ao is?
It's not it's king salmon.
Is king salmon. Ao is a feather. So what might ao chun refer to? This was one of the names of the late, great Dr. Walter Sobolev.
Light as a feather.
Well, chun. It's got chun on there.
Yeah. I can't think of like stink like a feather. It just doesn't make sense. Or smell like a feather.
You take a raven feather and you could smell that raven. You could smell it on there. Ao chun.
Or the seagull.
Yeah, you could smell the bird on the feather. And so it doesn't mean that it means it has a strong odor, right? That's really what it means. And so, but I don't think there's very many. Yeah, I guess you could say, the way you stink smells good to me. So people are attracted to like pheromones and stuff. So okay. So here's a classifier. Just to sort of review this thing, there are 4 groups. Every verb will belong to one of those groups. It will not change groups. That makes it a different verb. Every verb has a classifier. the classifier is loosely associated with meaning. 0 is the most common, it's kind of the default. S and L both have a similar job in that they might switch to say, somebody does it. ʼatudli.átk, it's good. xee.á, you made it good. ʼyanik. And so like you'll see that it'll switch to sometimes to L or S to say, somebody made that thing happen. The other things that they might do is just to sort of shift the meaning a little bit. I was shot, they caught it. I was shot, they held on to it, they grabbed it, they captured it. Those are similar things, right? And so sometimes they're adjusting the meaning, sometimes they're adjusting who's doing it and putting a little bit more focus on the action, who is doing the action, the agency. The S classifier is often, but not every time, associated with putting things into categories. So your S category, it's very organized. It's that type of thing. It's this type of thing. It's a specific thing. The L classifier is often associated with having something. So this is called ʼēq, a finger. S'eek is the word for mitten. S'eek. xee.á, s'eek, the fingered mitten. That's the word for a glove, right? And so you could say ʼtligús, it has a cloud. ʼtligús, the weather has clouds. So sometimes it's associated with sort of having a thing. And you'll see that in the negative, right? Shishjini, keshjini. It doesn't have arms. It's a vest. The SH classifier is kind of associated, not every time, but with things that people don't really want to do. And so sometimes you'll have yak-a, kesh-uk-a, kesh-ushk-a. Good, not good, bad. You have xee.á, lucky, kesh-ushk-a, not lucky, kesh-ushk-a, unlucky. There's a handful of verbs that do that. Now, getting into the classifier itself, once you have a group, like if you change that group, that's a different verb. But within the verb, it's a 0 classifier. It's the top left. Look at these. 0, sa, sha, sha. I would say those are your 4 classifiers in Lingít. There are 4 of them. But each of them can change a little bit, just like the vowels, right? We have 4 vowels. They can be short and high, short and low, long and high, long and low. These can be regular, plus I, plus D, or plus D and plus I. So it can have a little bit of adjustment within the group. It goes plus I for 2 reasons. It happened, or it potentially will happen. Those are the only 2 reasons why it would go plus I. It can go plus D to show middle voice, the subject is also the object, or we kick the object out of there. And not every verb will do that, but some of them will. Any questions? So now, continuing to think about how to read a verb theme. This has an object, not a subject. This one will be just 0. There'll be unmarked. There'll be no pronoun there. It's a D plus 0 classifier. It's also an event verb. What do those things mean? If we're going to say, I am wet, it's an event verb, which means, how does that affect what we're going to do?
It either happened or it hasn't happened.
Yeah, so it must have already happened. So now we're going to have a perfective verb. There's no imperfective. The imperfective for this verb does not exist. Because you're either not wet or you're wet. And if you're wet, then it has happened. So the perfective is a marker that's going to pop up right here. And it's going to be y. And it's going to have those two dots. But in this case, it's kind of interesting because for the perfective, it says, I really like to be a W. I love being a W. It's like my favorite thing. But if you have a second person, plural or singular,
Who, what, when, where, why, or how.
I will switch to a Y. But those are the only things that will change me to a Y. Otherwise, I'm always a W. So, a positive perfective must be plus I. The plus I of this classifier is right here. It's going to be D. So we're going to add a couple things here. W, D. Also going all the way back to this. So this is a 0, and this has 0 conjugation. That tells us what the stem is going to be. Does anybody remember? Because we can go look it up on the conjugator sheet.
Stays high.
It is high, and here's the perfective. We're going up. This is a 0. This is, well, we're not making it. So it is going to, like, this is what it's going to look like. Would it? Because there's no subject here. So we can just look right to the third person right here. Would it? It is closed, 0, short and high every time. A perfective 0 is short and high every single time. That's what it wants to be. So going back, we'll be able to predict this, right? And we're still just learning all these pieces. But we will know that this will be w, d, uk. Has to be short and high. So we put it all together, we get would d, uk, which has a nice pair of ejectives on the stem. So the worst thing to try and find an image for in public is the statement, I am wet. Don't do it. I had to find a little cardboard box and buy it from an artist because I just could not find it. Like a wet dog, maybe. But I was like in a coffee shop. I think I was putting together a beginning thing at workbook. I was like, oh, I'm just looking for images. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, this is not a good one to search for. So, how would we say it? Yeah, oh well. Everybody say, ʼatudli.átk.
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 Chosatína ge cúwch du ai, du gúchaí, with gúchaí au lleich cúwch. Du sai a yet Lingít chénach le cha chénach Allison Brem. I saw the magic cup. I saw, okay, I was in a meeting last week and someone was just casually drinking from like one of the Allison Bremner Starbucks ceramic cups. I was like, that's a strong flex. Those cups do not survive the man. All those cups are hard to find. Okay.
So where'd the woo come from?
Okay, so this is an event verb, which means there's a time when it didn't happen. There's a time when it did happen. There's no time in between. So that means if we're going to say it right now, it must be perfective. And just like and you've done this before, but how do you say, I know it?
Chotsuku.
Hwaseku. So that w has to be in there. You cannot say chaseku. You just can't. It has to be hwaseku because you have to have known it in order to know it. And that's just how Lingít thinks about certain concepts. And that means even though it says right now, I guess the literal definition would be I have become wet. So when we change ch to a vowel, if there's a vowel ending, then this must contract from w to just a w. And for those of you who are interested in inland dialect things, if you have a vowel and then you have the perfective marker, which is usually a w, right? So this is any vowel. And then we have a consonant and a vowel. And then you're going to have the root. That's where you get the M. So this one will have an inland dialect option. But on the coast, what do you think it might sound like? You are wet.
Imdit'ak.
That is the inland way to say it. Imdit'ak.
ʼatudli.átk.
Let's do the inland version first. Imdit'ak.
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 In the coastal, Iudit'ak.
Imdit'ak.
Iudit'ak.
Imdit'ak.
Iudit'ak.
Imdit'ak.
Okay. They are wet. It is wet. What if we just had this on its own?
Wudishak.
Yeah, oh well. Woodit'ak.
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 Any object pronouns that end with a vowel are going to cause this same thing to happen. One of them might be on its way. We are wet.
ʼatudli.átk.
We, the object that happened to us. How did? How did tuck?
ʼatudli.átk.
How did tuck?
ʼatudli.átk.
How did tuck?
Imdit'ak.
Hum did tuck?
Imdit'ak.
Hum did tuck?
Imdit'ak.
Hum did tuck?
Imdit'ak.
Y'all are wet.
Ye worship.
You did. You did tuck.
Imdit'ak.
You did tuck.
ʼatudli.átk.
You did tuck.
ʼatudli.átk.
Yim did tuck. Yim did tuck.
ʼatudli.átk.
Yim did tuck.
Imdit'ak.
They all are wet. Hus ends in a consonant. Hus.
ʼatudli.átk.
Hastu is like it belongs to them.
Oh.
It's always that way. Hastu ayi. Hastu tla. For the object, it's just going to be hus. Okay, did somebody say it?
ʼatudli.átk.
Yeah, aware. Hus would it tuck.
ʼatudli.átk.
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 People are wet. We're going to have ḳ, which ends with a vowel, which means, yeah, what? I think I heard it. Say it again. ʼatudli.átk.
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 Okay, Johan. Okay.
I really want to pinch the lower K.
Oh, yeah. Like once you see those, like your brain is like, I will pinch everything. So, yeah.
So
Okay.
why is that one ku and not ka?
Because it's going to be ḳ unless there is a common weather verb associated with it. So then if there is, then you'd switch it to ḳā to make sure that we know that we're not talking about the weather.
But couldn't the weather be wet?
I think it could. Let's go take a look. So we go into the verb dictionary now with all this new information we have, and we'll go look up wet. There's a bunch of things. Gun with the tuck. And they have a tendency to write some vowels long that should be actually short. The firewood. So then we could say to make something wet. That switches to an L classifier, just like we had talked about. They wet the floor. To be wet on the surface of something. To make something wet by sprinkling water. I'm going to sprinkle water on the blanket. To be wet outdoors. There is the ḳ, but it has a ka in front of it. So this is a thematic prefix right here. If you put a thematic prefix onto a verb, it's a different verb now. So ʼatudli.átk is different than ʼatudli.átk, which would be, and wet weather, like this is for something to have water on it, which is a little different than, say, because if you're thinking of what you got, like rainy weather, or I guess if you're thinking of the weather being wet, you're probably thinking of humid.
Yeah, visibly high humidity.
Yes. So then I think that one is under damp. And then you have kusana. So that would be, it is humid. Good question.
So I'm scared to ask this next one, but if you go back to the wet, it said something about she wet the floor with water. Would it be something different if she wet the floor with something that was not water?
No, you could just specify. So you could say, I don't know, what else would you wet something with?
She spilled the soup.
Well, like spilling is different. Like this would be like
Sorry.
I poured soup on it to get it wet. Like to water to get something wet.
The 2-year-old painted the table with lemonade.
Okay, yeah. So kashitsukutek kahinitin we nadak aushitak atkatsku. The child got the table wet with lemonade. Kashitsukutek is lemonade. Or lemon. It's a sour fruit. Good questions. And so you could also say, Khat ʼatudli.átk. You got me wet. And I could say ʼatudli.átk. I got you wet. Okay, good questions. But we're not going to switch. We'll do the subject next. We're just doing. So that's kind of the reason we just the object here. Like, let's do one at a time. And then we'll do just the subject. Then we'll change them both. And we'll start singing the Barney. What was that big dinosaur? Like, I love you, you love me. All that stuff. Oh, we get a thematic prefix now. That's going to change things a little bit. We're going to have ya in here, which, we could write it that way if we wanted to. This is a zero classifier. This is another event verb, which means all of these are going to be perfective. So if it's perfective, this is going to be ya. This is going to be, what do you think this is going to be? Zero, closed, perfective?
Short and high.
Short and high. S'eek.
S'eek.
All the way down.
S'eek.
So this one, just so that we know, I'll give you the answer to this one right here. S'eek. S'eek. That's what it's going to be. When you have ya plus ya, you get yawa. Okay? So I am weathered in. S'eek. Yeah, wait, we had a number. Everybody say S'eek.
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 S'eek. You are weathered in. The I goes right there.
S'eek.
Yawa. S'eek.
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 They are weathered in. Don't put any pronouns there. S'eek.
S'eek. S'eek.
We're weathered in.
S'eek.
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 Y'all are weathered in. You all. That's us.
S'eek.
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 They all are weathered in.
S'eek.
S'eek.
People are weathered in.
S'eek. S'eek.
What's this one gonna be? How can we tell? Everything is probably given to us in the theme.
It's a state verb, so we can do imperfective with a plus I.
That's right. It's going to be xee. It's got this little X, so it's going to be seen every time. Won't change. Stay long and low. So we should expect seen. I am strong.
Ħatlitzin.
Seen.
Let's
You are,
16.
you are strong. Seen.
let's see.
16.
Seen.
16.
They are strong.
Let's see.
Seen.
Fitzin.
Seen.
16.
We are strong.
Haslitzin.
Hallucin.
We. Seen.
Hallucin.
Haslitzin.
Sixteen.
Seen.
Hallucin.
Haslitzin.
Y'all are strong.
Yedlucin.
Seen.
Yedlucin.
16.
Seen.
Fitzin.
They all are strong.
Haslitzin.
Haslitzin.
Seen.
Hallucin.
Seen.
Hallucin.
People are strong.
Hallucin.
Push it seen.
Hallucin.
Push it seen.
Hallucin.
Kahwasa yishaku to cut you on. Jeez. That's good stuff. That like just starting to we'll just keep practicing. We got I don't know, a few more sets of verbs and then we got a bunch of more verbs. And then we switch to the subject, but we'll start going through them a little bit faster because it's a lot to think about, but when you go back, you realize we're going ḥat, ha, I, yi, 0, has, ḥ, but we're kind of doing it in a slightly different order. I think we're going ḥat, I, 0, ha, yi, has, 0, ḥ. That's what we're doing, right? As we cycle through each of these verbs and just getting yourself, increasing your confidence that you will predict the right one. And it's fine if it doesn't come out right. Nothing bad happens. The walls stay up. The clouds are still in the sky if there's clouds up. So it's fine.
It's like everyone's still getting an A.
Still get an A. E-I with a high tone. Okay. Let's talk about our sentences for next week. Good job. You guys have translated what, 50 sentences so far? Is that right?
I guess I'll find out.
What's Jinjin Ka?
Maybe
Yeah,
40.
we're on Dr. Shu
I guess
Sunday.
that is 50, yeah.
Shu, we didn't have sentences for Sunday. Okay, so it's 60. This week is 60.
60? That's amazing.
So I have it up on the screen. This is your chance to ask questions about any clarification.
My child was vomiting this morning.
It's slightly
Oh,
bigger.
can
What
we
is
say
quietened?
Let's just say vomited. Can we do that? I didn't realize it. And get rid of the was.
It is, I'll tell you, but it is a real word. And when we use unusual words like this, it is a direct hit for you to look in the verb dictionary. So quieten means to make quiet.
Yes. So you would say maybe we should be quiet. That's how you would say it in English. But we wrote it this way so that you would have a major hint on what to look up if you were to look for it, say in the Lingít verb dictionary. For number 2, can we strike the word was?
And then things in parentheses, they're not for you to translate, they're hints for you about which verb they are. So you're still translating them, but it's not meant to be part of the sentence. It is a major hint for what verb it is.
Yes, when you go into Lingít, you don't need to look up the word for noise in there.
So you're translating the sentence, did you hear me? Your hint about which verb to use is the parentheses making noise. So this is what we're going to do from now on. We heard requests to have some more hints, to be more specific. So things in parentheses are telling you which of the verbs it is. And then when you see words like quieted, it's a hint because that's how you're going to find the verb.
And for number 9, you do not have to have the word cup in there.
Any other clarifying questions? So you all have great ones on Tuesday when you're turning in your sentences.
So if you don't have to have a cup in number 9, how would you hand someone water without a cup?
Well, in Lingít, you would say, hand me water. That's what exactly
Can we
what
put
you
a
had.
cup of in parentheses so that way we don't try to look up cup?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
A cup of, there we go. Okay.
Yes, we're- yeah, the rest.
Hey, Johan. Tachwik ejene. Cheese.
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Je was graag to steam.